Hi, sweeties. How are you doing? Welcome to AntiRacism, and thank you all so much for all the love and support. Hope you all are doing great. So, I come across a video during segregation where literally everything was segregated. And when I know about segregation, I know about Jim Crow, but there is or there are limits to some certain things that I know. The truth is that I knew school were segregated, fountains were also segregated. I never knew that when it comes to in public places, Black people are also being segregated. Like they have their own chair, right? Where they wrote them colored. And that is where, and there are some doors they can walk into. I mean, it's probably just for white people or it is just for Black people. And the truth is that I really do not know how the level some people got to that will make them segregate everything. And people that did not experience all these segregations are the ones that will tell you that Black people were better off during segregation. Sure, just keep your mouth shut if you don't know what to say, because from the things that I am seeing, that was not what we call living. It was just living in bondage. Because tell me how literally everything, and some people that wanted to further their education at some point were not also allowed to get into university because they said, we do not want to be in the same school with Negro on a placard. Tell me something. Let's get into this video.
Good evening. Today we're going to discuss separate but equal, the legal doctrine that once allowed for racial segregation in the United States. The doctrine held that so long as segregation laws affected white and Black people equally, those laws did not violate the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, which prohibits states from denying to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. In practice, separate but equal was a sham. The treatment and facilities accorded to Black citizens ranged in quality from inferior to barbaric. The doctrine was effectively overturned by the Supreme Court's decision in Brown v. Board of Education of Topeka, 1954, but its legacy is arguably still observable in the continued social and economic inequities and inequalities between Black and white Americans. The phrase separate but equal itself comes from the Separate Car Act of 1890, though the wording in the actual law was equal but separate. The Louisiana law effectively required all railroads operating in the state to provide separate cars for Black and white passengers. A mixed-race man named Homer Plessy challenged the law by sitting in a seat reserved for white passengers, for which he was arrested. Plessy and his legal team hoped that the Separate Car Act would be declared unconstitutional if his case, Plessy v. Ferguson, reached the Supreme Court. However, the strategy backfired. The court accepted the case but upheld the act, settling the legality of racial segregation for generations. Using separate but equal as constitutional cover, state and local governments in the South continued to pass laws, collectively referred to as Jim Crow, that theoretically treated white and Black Americans equally, but actually enforced a racial caste system in which Black people occupied the lowest rank. White and Black students were forbidden from attending the other group's schools, for example, but white student schools were given far more resources. Black and white people were prohibited from sitting in each other's sections in theaters, but the white section was always in front, and Black people were ostensibly allowed to vote, just as white people were, but only if they could afford to pay poll taxes and pass literacy or comprehension tests, which were not applied to illiterate white people, among other obstacles. Late in the Jim Crow era, some civil rights activists were able to use segregationalists' bad faith to their advantage. In 1946, a Black student named Heman Marion Sweet applied for admission to the University of Texas Law School, knowing that there was no equivalent institution for Black students in the state. Upon being refused admission because he was Black, Sweet sued the school. The state then quickly created a separate law school for black people, but the Supreme Court ruled that in Sweet v. Painter, 1950, that because the new institution could not possibly provide a legal education equal to which Sweet had been denied, the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment requires that he be admitted to the University of Texas Law School. The date on which the Supreme Court issued its ruling in Sweet v. Painter, June 5, 1950, was a seminal one for racial integration. On the same day, the court also ruled in another case, McLaurin v. Oklahoma State Regents, that the University of Oklahoma's requirements that a black graduate student sit in a row of classroom seats designated for black students and at separate black tables in the school's library and cafeteria did not amount to separate but equal accommodation. Taken together, the two cases effectively ended legal segregation in graduate and professional education. The artifice of separate but equal collapsed in 1954 with the Supreme Court case Brown v. Board of Education of Topeka, which initiated the racial integration of the country's public schools. In its ruling, the court rejected Plessy v. Ferguson entirely by considering the effect of segregation itself on public education rather than only the question of whether equal resources were provided. For instance, the justices considered whether the self-esteem of black children was harmed by forcing them to attend separate schools. Having applied such a perspective to the issue, Chief Justice Earl Warren, writing for the unanimous court, declared that, and I quote, "In the field of public education, the doctrine of separate but equal has no place. Separate educational facilities are inherently unequal." Although the court's ruling in Brown applied only to public schools, its logic was clearly applicable to other public facilities. In subsequent years, civil rights lawyers cited Brown as a legal precedent for desegregating other public spaces. The decision also catalyzed the American Civil Rights Movement, which culminated in the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which prohibited racial segregation in places of public accommodation involved in interstate commerce, and the Voting Rights Act of 1965, which, among other provisions, suspended literacy tests. Notwithstanding these advances, many proponents of civil rights have argued that a more subtle or surreptitious form of the separate but equal doctrine remains in effect today. Racial inequalities, for example, demonstrably continue to exist in American school systems primarily due to racially concentrated residential patterns and the great disparity in funding between schools in different districts. How to remedy this and other imbalance is a contentious issue that has yet to be resolved. Now, I know that you think that you said something really profound here, but what you said and what you meant are two different things. And I don't fully think that you realize exactly what you said. Now, let's start at the beginning. First of all, when talking about the truth and bringing the truth to the masses, there is no need for anyone to have dog whistles, aka code words. And for you to think being against racism that is the product of the construct of race that white ancestrals created is a bad thing. That's a you problem. And deconstruction should be on your horizon. But if you believe that anti-racism means anti-whiteness, do you realize that you just told us that you unequivocally understand that the vast majority of white people have not separated themselves from their racist indoctrination and still hold tight to these beliefs and ideologies and tropes to this day? See, you went onto a post thinking that you were about to have an intellectual gotcha moment, but you don't realize that you ran head first into the point and bumped your head. Now, do white people have the ability to deconstruct from racism? Yes. And just like any addiction, it is a daily work that is involved to not slip backwards on that slippery slope. But non-white people can possess internalized racism. We see it every day. But I will give you credit for not proclaiming that not speaking about it will make it go away, or that it went away because we had a black president. Those 2 half points equals 1 for you. But other than that, isn't it funny how you all's brains work? When trying to continuously spackle the foundation of racism, you walk right into the wall that you built. Maybe take the time to look at it and help the rest of us take it down, because you're getting hurt by it as well.
So this is all I got from this video. And sincerely speaking, each time I see some certain videos, I ask myself, how did they get to the stage of segregating schools, chairs, literally everything? Because back then, I mean, Jim Crow, right? Things were all segregated. And that was also how standard of living was, because if we cannot go to the same school, we can't have the same seat, we can't be at the same theater, we cannot even be, okay, some in the same class, maybe in the same class, different, seat rows and all that. And to a point where some of them will say they do not want to be in the same school with people that look like me. I really do not know what stage, I mean, like as human beings, what stage they got to that made them feel like there is no need to mix up with anybody. There is no need for them to be around us. We just have to let them be, sit them from far away, and that is it. Some people are going to say it's been long ago. There is a video that I saw yesterday where they were talking about black people, how they said they do not want black people in their neighborhood. I went back to the same person's page to look for it. It happened that she has deleted it. And they just do not want to do anything. They feel like, okay, you can imagine still back then. This was documented in 1965. I am not mistaken. 1965. Because when I was watching it, I took my time to compare. I was like, okay, 1965, 70, 80, right? So people that experience that are still very much alive, because 1965 from now, I mean, there are still, if you live a decent life, trust me, they are still balling. I mean, looking really very healthy, right? And they were like, don't want them to be in the same neighborhood. I mean, there is nothing they did not call people that look like me. They do crime, they smoke, they do this, they do drugs. So all these stereotypes that we see today did not start today. It's something that has been there, and it's something the ancestors started with or started. And there is something with bad behavior and all that. Their children grew up and also took from where their parents dropped, right? Because trust me, for the people that said, I do not want to be in the same school with Negroes, you could see that, right? On a placard. Where did they learn that from? So probably so because there is something about human beings. Sometimes most of them learn that from people. And do not, I bet this was also the same period. Lane and Shin was a thing, because trust me, if somebody does not want to be on the same seat with me, I saw the seat, they're colored, right? Schools, maybe like an entrance is just for black people. Man, I don't know the level that they got. I mean, they got to that made them think that this is the best thing to do and all that. And let me tell you something, for somebody, that's why each time I think about Lane and Shane, I feel like people that do things like that are people that do not have value for human beings, right? They already looked at you like, why do I have to, like, uh, spare them? Or why are they even living for, some people are just, I don't know how to, but some people are really crazy and weird. Weirdos, really. Because, like, I mean, the whole thing is just really crazy. I am not going to lie to you. Anybody that can so, like, strongly say that I do not want to share anything with these people, we also lean and shame without looking back. And that is true. They don't want to be in the same school. They don't want to work on this. They're like, nothing. So, what was life all about? The same people you people do not want to do anything with are also the same people you trusted your children with. Ooh, you do not want them. You don't want to do anything with them. Anything was segregated, but you left your children for them to take care of. That really tells a lot that whatever you people think we are or Black people are is actually all made up. Because really, you cannot leave your children with somebody you do not trust. I don't know if you understand what I am saying. You cannot leave your children when you do not trust people. It's only a daft that will leave his children with somebody he or she doesn't trust. I hope you marinate on this. And now let me tell you, all these are the things that I see. And when I talk about reparations, I talk about reparations with my full chest because I understand that there is need to fix all the things they have done, generational trauma that they passed across one generation to another generation. And each time you bring all these stories up, they tell you it's been long ago, get away, get over it. Hey, boy, hey, girl, it has not been long ago. The people that experienced it are still very much alive. So watch what you are saying. That reparation is something people shouldn't even argue or have to argue. It's something that you all know that you are supposed to pay reparations. Of course, they are extension of their ancestors. For those that want to ask, did you experience it? The ancestors experienced it. And most of the things that happened to them, their generational wealth that were stolen, taken away, and all that, still affecting them to this very moment. So there is need for reparations, 100%. And it is something that I am very, like each time I talk about it because there is need for you all to get that check. See you all in my next video. Bye for now.